Welcome to Unity of Charlotte, where our mission is to nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. And simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. And I'm delighted to see you this morning. As I was driving to church on this magnificent, perfect day, I thought to myself, wow, it is beautiful out, but you know how glad I am going to be when I am in that sanctuary with all of these beloveds. Yes. So I am so glad you are here in the sanctuary, and I am so glad you are with us on Zoom, because we live in a place where being together, physically and virtually, makes such a difference in our lives. So I smile, and I'm filled with love for all of you. I'm Reverend Pat Dre, and you joining us here today is an extraordinary event, because whenever we are gathered, however we arrive here, we are together and together in joy. And I want to start by thanking both our choir and our congregation and our community on Zoom, with a special thanks for Patricia Carr, who's with us in person today from Las Cruces, New Mexico, where she moved right around the first of the year. So we thought we were having a miracle when she walked in this morning, and it was a miracle, but she is here in the flesh. So we're delighted to have you. And so let's join by sharing our statement of oneness with heart, with mind, and with alertness of the truth that it brings into our life and into our experience. There is one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. And join with me in our word of the day from our wonderful daily word that comes to us from Unity Worldwide. It's called gather. And take a deep breath and release it. And know that you're in the right place at the right time. We gather and magnify the presence of God. As I gather with others in the spirit of love and peace, my awareness of God's presence becomes more powerful, even palpable. Together we create an energy, a vibration greater than any of us has alone. I am comfortable and at ease when I notice our differing appearances, preferences, backgrounds, and opinions, because I'm reminded of the limitless diversity of divine expression and my place in it. When I join in fellowship with my family, friends, and all others who are dear to me, each of us becomes a mirror for the others. We see in one another the divine presence that lives in and expresses as every person. The unifying energy of divine love unites and binds us together. In this love, we are one. And I am so grateful to Daily Word for the gift that it is in our lives. We honor its copyright, its trademark, and how it elevates us in all that we do. And I'm reminded a little in my own life of the unity principles. So there's a couple of principles that are wound in this, but one in particular, which is the creative power of our thoughts. and how when magnified, they show up in magnificent ways. You see, for a couple of summers, I had my middle grandchildren showing up for grandma camp during the summer. And oh, what fun it was. I put so much effort and thought into that. It was all really that I could talk about. And if you spent time with me, even 5 or 10 minutes, you had to hear about what was going on in grandma camp. And it started with intention, and there was meditation. Oh, this is with 4 and 7-year-olds, might I add. And then there were games, and then there was vocabulary lesson, and there was even singing and dancing and reading from a favorite book of their father's when he was little, The Summer of Monkeys, and so on and so forth. And so for 2 summers, I did wonderful things. Now, my grandchildren benefited, but I did notice the person who benefited the most was me, because they live in every single moment in perfect accord, whether it's singing, dancing, or hearing a new word. Now, my upper deck was called Grandma Camp. And oh my goodness, it was such a busy place. It had a place to read, and it had a tent for reading, and it had games, and it had crayons and pencils and all kinds of things. Well, Grandma Camp has been empty for 2 years because life changes. And it was still cluttered, but it had an extra layer of pollen and dirt up there. And my husband said to me, don't you think it's time to dismantle Grandma Camp? Because you see, those little girls have moved 2 hours away. But I still think fondly of Grandma Camp. Well, the little girls came last week, and they were asked to do heavy duty. They came for a visit overnight, and they had to dismantle Grandma Camp. And all of that dirty stuff came inside. And some of it got thrown away, and some of it went to Goodwill, and some of it still has to be sorted through. But let me tell you, what used to be Grandma Camp is now Grandma's meditation space. And it is a fabulous place. I almost didn't make it this morning because I was in one fabulous place coming to another fabulous place. So creative thoughts are things. How did we do it? We did it by knowing that times have changed, and now it's time for a new idea. And the new idea is just as magnificent as the one we lived. Join with me in praying for our new minister and our new space. Let's have some music right now. And the music is For the Beauty of the Earth. Announcements. These are great opportunities for us. So many things to do and so many ways to do them. And most of ours are still meeting virtually, so you don't have to leave the comfort of your home. So if we do have the affirmative prayer on Tuesday evenings, it is a wonderful event that starts at 7:15 on Zoom and is a profound opportunity to be in a meditative space and see not just your wonderful future, but the future for all of our globe and the future for an ecologically sound way for our globe to move forward in harmony and for generations to come. And so here's what I want to share with you. Being part of this meditation group has transformed my personal meditation. So I encourage you to join us even once, and you will also experience very positive things in your own life. Affirmative prayer, meditation Tuesday evenings at 7:15 via Zoom with the link at our website. And we have creative thinking class on Wednesdays that meets at 1 p.m. on Zoom, which is an extraordinary class which allows you to use your own magnificent powers to continue to transform your life and support your spiritual journey. And we have a wonderful class, and it's not too late to join because we're just getting started, and it is truly extraordinary. So please consider that. The Course in Miracles meets on Thursday mornings at 9:30 a.m. And the link is at the website. And there is a new class starting May 3rd with Reverend Robin Volker. And her classes are getting a lot of traction, both with our community as well as communities, New Thought communities, and Unity communities. So please consider that. It's a wonderful event. All you have to do is email Robin Volker, and the information is at our site. So let's affirm the presence of a new spiritual leader and a new home for Unity of Charlotte. So join with me in saying, we affirm the presence of a new minister and a spiritual home for Unity of Charlotte that fulfills every need for space and use in order to support and share our unified purpose to love, grow, and serve. And so it is. And now I have the wonderful opportunity to introduce our speaker this morning. It is Reverend Jim Ernstsen. Reverend Jim currently serves as a senior minister at Unity of Central Minnesota. Having met him via Zoom, I want to tell you he is a very interesting and compelling human being. And he's been involved in the Unity movement for over 25 years and has been a guest speaker throughout Eastern US and Canada. He's lived previously in California and Florida, and he currently lives and ministers in St. Cloud area. We jokingly say he's looking for a new, warmer climate, especially after some of the interesting weather they've had in Minnesota. But I think he's really such a versatile human being, and so versatile with the teaching that he could live anywhere and be compelling, even if he didn't have to shovel his way out in the morning. He and his wife currently live and minister in the greater St. Cloud area. Jim is a Unity ordained minister with a Master of Divinity degree. And his wife, Reverend Lisa Herklotz, will be presenting on the second half of the presentation next Sunday. So I want you to be sure to tune in for both of these. We are delighted that this couple is candidating here at Unity of Charlotte. And we're especially grateful for the energy, the enthusiasm that they have for this teaching and their willingness to not only candidate, but see what comes next in their lives. So give a very warm welcome to Reverend Jim to us via Zoom this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Reverend Pat, and hello, Unity of Charlotte. My name is Reverend Jim Ernstsen, and I would say true. It is 39 degrees currently here in the St. Cloud area, and there is a slight chance of snow. So, as was said, I grew up in California and moved to Florida. Snow was something to play in and never to live and work in. So I've had to learn how to shovel snow. I've had to learn how to scrape snow off my car. It's been a learning a learning experience. So let's go ahead and get started. Quick story that we're going to start off with. Peter in the Christian scriptures, Peter in the New Testament. So if you remember, we've got the 12 disciples. They're out in a boat out in the distance from the shore. Jesus instructed them to take that boat out there. There had been a lesson during the day. Jesus had talked to the crowds that day, and he was moving off by himself, a chance to move into that quiet space. But he asked the disciples to go out onto the lake themselves. And of course, we read in the New Testament, we read about the wind, and we know that there were waves out there. The 12 disciples are out in this boat by themselves. And I'm going to ask you to maybe engage in your imagination for just a second, and keep your eyes open if you'd like, or you can close them if you'd like as well. But pretend that you're the one in this boat as well, just for a moment. This is only going to take maybe 30 seconds or so. So pretend that you're in that boat, and you feel that wind in your hair. You might even see those white caps on the water as the boat's moving up and down. You might hear the waves as it's slapping up against the side of the boat. You might even smell that air from the lake as they're moving about on that boat. And really immerse yourself in this experience of being out there on the water in the lake. So now that you're there, and you can open your eyes if you've closed them, but now that you're there, know that off into the distance that we're told, out into the dark, because it's dark at this point, the 12 disciples see something moving out on the distance there. And it was moving towards the boat. And you can imagine a bit of fear at this point. Maybe even for a few of them, a little bit of panic mode kicks in at this point. Some of them were afraid. It even says in the New Testament that some of them thought that they were seeing some sort of ghost out there. And there was a little bit of panic. You have to admit, there must have been a little bit of fear going on in that small boat out there. And then Jesus spoke up. He got close enough to where he could be heard. And he said, "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." So this is Jesus walking on water this is the miracle of Jesus walking on water toward the boat. And we know that we don't take the scriptures in literal form, but this is a story for us. This is a metaphysical story for us. So let's treat it that way as well. Jesus spoke up. He's walking on the water towards the boat, and he calls out to Peter specifically, and he asked Peter to step out of the boat, to crawl out of the boat, step out of the boat, and walk on water toward Jesus, to walk over the water. So Peter steps out of the boat, and he's amazed as he's walking toward his teacher over the water, over the waves. He's feeling those white caps. But then he sees and he experiences it. He pauses for a moment. He's feeling the wind. He's noticing where he's at. He's looking around. He's noticing where he's at. And he starts to doubt. And his fear starts to get the worst of him. And what happens? He starts to sink in the water out there. So we're going to find out what happens to Peter and his fear and the doubt regarding these infinite possibilities that we're going to talk about today. Today we're talking about that field of infinite possibilities. This is one of the things that Peter's working with in this story. This story is a reflection of our lives. We're not simply learning about something that may or may not have happened 2,000 years ago, but this is how do we apply this story to our own lives? How do we apply these infinite possibilities and the fear that we sometimes feel into our own lives? So we're going to talk about three things today. We're going to talk about infinite possibilities. We're going to talk about the what and not the how of this situation. And then number 3, we're going to talk about advancing confidently. Advancing confidently. So let's jump straight into number 1. Infinite possibilities. Deepak Chopra, who is one of my favorite authors, Deepak Chopra once said that when you live your life with an appreciation of coincidences and their meanings, you connect with the underlying field of infinite possibilities. The underlying field of infinite possibilities. So let's break that down. Let's break that sentence down and try and understand what Deepak Chopra is trying to teach us here. There is an appreciation and an awareness that he's speaking to of the events happening around us at any given moment. Are we awake enough? Are we in the now? And he's not using his words, but this is what I'm attributing to his words. Are our eyes open enough to see what's going on around us and the opportunities that are presenting themselves to us at any given moment? Because we can walk through life just ignoring everything and just doing what we've always done. And that may be the easiest way, or maybe not, but sometimes we do. Sometimes we're on that autopilot. Deepak Chopra also talks about that idea of the meaning of coincidences. And for me, what he's doing is he's given a new word for that old concept, that synchronicity that Carl Jung talks about, that there is no thing as coincidences within our life, that these things are happening. These things are presenting themselves for a reason within our lives, if we're only awake or aware enough to see them coming and respond to them as well. So if you're tempted to think, wow, that was random in terms of the coincidences within your life, well, maybe not. Maybe those coincidences are there for a real purpose. Deepak also talks about connecting with this field of possibilities. And when he talks about that connection, he talks about that as a field. And within the unity movement, we talk about that as kind of a principle, or a law, maybe even. And so we're going to explore this idea of that field of possibilities where there are no limitations to the options that are available in our lives. No limitations whatsoever. And it's infinite. There's everything possible at any given moment. That's the exciting part of this. Infinite and everything at any given moment. And I love that concept that it's all out there if I simply am aware enough and put it together and don't ignore those things that are out there in my life. Charles Fillmore is quoted as saying, and so quote, "It will be found that everything in this universe," and I'm going to repeat that, everything in this universe, every form and every shape originated in our imagination. Everything originated in our imagination. So I'm going to say originated in our mind through that field of infinite possibility is, I think, what Charles was trying to tell us. In other words, the universe didn't say, if you can dream it, yeah, but really, get real. You're not going to be able to do that. That's not realistic. That's the human answer to this field of infinite possibilities. But the truth of it is that if you can dream it, you can do it. You can have it in your lives. So, in fact, I'm not even sure who wrote that quote. So when we get home, we'll Google that. If you can dream it, you can do it. I know that it's out there somewhere. This gives us that chance to be either positive within our lives or fear-based. And we heard about Peter and that idea of, he started out with that positive nature as well. He started out with that perfect field, that infinite, and then he started to slip into that fear-based thinking and then we're going to find out what happened to him as well. Think about the trap that we sometimes put ourselves in. This is what usually happens. As adults, we've got to admit that we immediately go to that question, what could go wrong? And I admit it, I go there as well. What could go wrong? What should I be? I've got to protect myself in some way. What should I be afraid of? We have to admit that we do these things, and that knowledge that we do gives us a leg up in terms of changing that habit that we might have or put ourselves into. And instead, what if we immediately went to that idea of what could go right or what will go right within my lives? And this is very, very similar to what children do. This is what the Buddhists call beginner's mind. This is probably what Reverend Pat's grandchildren experience every day of their life, is that idea of what could and what will go right at any given moment in my life. That's infinite possibilities within our life. I've also given us an affirmation this week that we can carry with us. So we can carry this affirmation with us throughout the day, in the days ahead, in the week ahead. Whenever we think about it, we can bring this forth. So if you want to write this down, that would be great. What I usually do is I usually write this down, stick it up on my refrigerator. Every time I go into the kitchen, I read my affirmation for the week, something that we talked about on Sunday and that I want to remind myself. So today's affirmation: I proceed confidently in the direction of my dream. I proceed confidently in the direction of my dream. So let's move on to that second point that we're going to talk about today: the what and not the how. The what and not the how. So don't mess with the dreaded hows is one of the quotes that I love out there. There's a gentleman out there on the web that I get his email, I get his newsletter out there, and it's very positive. It talks about he's not unity, he's not new thought, but it talks about all the things that we do with different words. But he's always telling us, don't mess with the dreaded hows. So usually what happens is we start with a mere taste of something. And this is the how. This is the how that we're talking about. And then we do ourselves a disservice by moving into problem solving. And guys out there, you know I'm talking to you. You know I'm talking to you because as a guy, we move into problem solving mode very quickly whenever something presents itself. What I'm asking is to hesitate for that. And because it doesn't always serve us well, sometimes we have to listen. Sometimes we need to let it sink in. Sometimes we need to move into prayer and meditation. Sometimes we need to move into that quiet space before we just jump into how am I going to solve that thing quickly. So instead of moving into that problem solving, instead of listing the things that we know, because what we're doing in listing those things that we know, we're actually limiting ourselves on how we're going to move through this thing, this challenge. If the only thing that I accomplish or dream of were things that I've already done or knew about, how restrictive would my life be? I'd be at a dead end constantly. But we're talking about spiritual growth constantly throughout our lives. And that's why we come together as a community, is to help each other in that spiritual growth. The Buddhists call it a sangha. It is our community that comes together and helps each other through the spiritual growth that each individual is going through. And we lend each other a hand, and it's a beautiful thing. What if instead of opening ourselves up to the randomness of the universe, these things that spirit is aware of, we open ourselves up to this thing, this concept of infinite possibilities? Instead of doing it the old way, we open ourselves up. We open our heart up. We open our minds up to hearing that still small voice out there that will lead us to a newer and better way of doing whatever it is that we're working with. J.K. Rowling, and those of you who have ever read to children, because I read this series to my daughter as she was growing up. These are the Harry Potter books. So the author of the Harry Potter books says, we do not need magic in our lives to transform our world. We carry all the power that we need inside ourselves already. And we know that to be true. We are divine. And we talk about seeing the Christ within others as well. We talk about that concept of namaste within our lives, of seeing the Christ or the divine within another. We are created. We are that divine essence ourselves. In J.K. Rowling's words, we carry all the power we need inside ourselves. And I believe that 100%. What are the steps that maybe she would even think about that move us into that field of possibilities? So bring to mind the what. I'm going to ask you to engage your imagination here. So one of our 12 powers, engage that idea of imagination right now. What is it in your life that you're working with? It could be a challenge. It could be something exciting that has come into your life, a possibility that you're toying with, maybe even. And bring it to mind just for a minute or two here. This could be like a new job that you're thinking about applying for. This could be healing of a relationship. Maybe you're working through something with your partner or with a friend. Maybe it's taking prosperity to the next level in your life. Whatever it is, whatever that challenge is, or whatever that exciting thing is that you're working through within your life, just hold it in your heart for a moment as we talk about this idea of infinite possibilities. So we're talking about the what and not the how. So bring and begin to create that goal within your life. Again, a new life, a healed relationship, more abundance in your life, whatever it is. It could be anything within your life. And move toward that thing. Move toward that thing, maybe one baby step at a time, maybe one step at a time, maybe just one itty bitty step. In other words, put a little bit of action behind that thing that you're working on. Just a small bit of action. Begin where you are, because we can't do anything else, right? But begin where you are and take that little step. Get the wheels in motion, in other words. Now, here's the key. Be open and willing at that point. You've started to take that small step, but be willing and open to see things differently. It's not going to be the same old way. That's the field of infinite possibilities. It doesn't have to be the same old way to create within our lives. And we are co-creating with the divine at any given moment. Don't lock yourself into the how. So it's not like you have to say, these are the next 12 steps that I'm going to work on. It's just one step, and then be open to what comes up next. What this does is this allows us to let go of the fear of failure within our lives, to let go and maybe even let go of that fear of success. Sometimes that stops us in our tracks as well. What if I'm successful beyond measure? I won't know what to do. Will I lose my friends? Well, anyway, our minds go a little bit crazy sometimes. So that fear of failure, or maybe even the fear of success, can sometimes stop us if we don't allow ourselves to still be open. Or sometimes we may even insist that it has to be that same old way. but we're making a new habit here. We're opening ourselves up here instead. And we're using that affirmation this week again. I proceed confidently in the direction of my dream. So number 3, let's jump into number 3. Advance confidently in the direction of your dream. Henry David Thoreau, and he's one of my favorite authors from Transcendentalism. Henry David Thoreau, along with Emerson, one of the great transcendentalists of the 19th century, quote, "If one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavors to live the life which they have imagined, they will meet with a success unexpected in common hours." I love that. Now, usually you will hear that quote, and it can be wrapped up as one concept right there. That success unexpected in common hours. But I'd like to read the second half of that, which doesn't get enough credit, and we'll explore that a little tiny bit. So back to Henry David Thoreau. They will put some things behind. Think about this in terms of doing it a different way. They will put things behind, will pass an invisible boundary. New, universal, and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within them, or the old laws will be expanded and interpreted in their favor in a more liberal sense. They will live in the license of a higher order of being. I love that. I love that. An idea that we can move beyond the way that we've always done it. Open ourselves up to that field of infinite possibilities. This is, and again, Henry David Thoreau, living with the license of a higher order of being. And isn't that what we strive for? Bringing about a higher vibrational quality into our lives, living with the license of a higher order of being. I just love that. Again, our affirmation, I proceed confidently in the direction of my dream. So now I'm going to wrap up here, but I want to bring back Peter into our story. What happened to Peter? What he started, the last we heard about Peter, he was out on the water, but he started to feel fear out there. He started to feel that wind, to see those waves, and he started to sink before he even reached Jesus out there. And I believe this was the Sea of Galilee. You can check me on this. Open up your Bible, move out into the Gospel of Matthew there. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the Sea of Galilee. He's walking on the water. He's stepping out towards Jesus over and through those waves. So he's doing great. Metaphysically, he's overcoming any doubts that he might have. The doubt that he's living this idea that anything is possible. That's what got him out of the boat. That's what got him walking on water to begin with. The doubt that he lived, he erased that doubt, and he's living in that field of infinite possibility at this time. He was moving forward step by step out there. He was utilizing imagination. He was believing that it could happen. He was focused on the what that he wanted. He wanted to reach his teacher out there on the water. He didn't care how it was happening at the time. He didn't care that he didn't think it was going to be able to work. It was what he wanted to do. He was advancing confidently in the direction of his dream. And in that Gospel of Matthew, it says, then he looked down and he felt afraid and he started to sink. Metaphysically, what does that mean? He looked down. He looked down in terms of his belief. He needed to believe. He needed to set his eyes upward. He needed to live in that higher vibration. But instead, he started to doubt. He started to feel that fear. He looked down. He felt afraid. This is what the writers of the book of Matthew says. And he started to sink. What did Jesus tell him? In that book, Jesus said, and I'm going to quote, because again, this is one of my favorites, "Oh, ye of little faith." Why did you doubt? That's the lesson. Why did you doubt? You were doing great, Peter. But you looked down, you doubted, and now you're starting to sink. Imagination is what Peter had, using faith of the what that he wanted, not the how. He had confidence until he doubted, until he was afraid, until he entertained images of fear, and then he started to sink. And of course, then he reached out to Jesus, who lifted him up, and then they walked together over the water back to the boat. So, and there you go, reaching out and taking someone else's hand and moving back into the safety of a boat. Boy, there's another talk for us for another Sunday. So we could talk about that again on another Sunday. So what have we talked about? I'm wrapping up here, believe me. Today, we talked about infinite possibilities. We talked about imagination. We talked about synchronicity, moving away from fear and stepping out away from the boat. That safety of the way we've always done things. 2, we talked about the what and not the how, not getting bogged down with the same old way of doing things, being open to something new. And then 3, we talked about advancing confidently, meeting our dream, that new job, that healed relationship. We are meeting that with a success unexpected in common hours, as the transcendentalists would say. Thank you for the opportunity here today to speak with you. I really, really love being able to talk about these things. I love you. I bless you. I appreciate each and every one of you, Unity of Charlotte, and I see the divine in you. Namaste.
And Reverend Jim, thank you so much. That was a lovely talk, and it certainly had an impact. And if you feel there's an echo in here, there is an echo in here, but now it's gone, and that's good. Reverend Jim, thank you so much for encouraging us to raise our sights, to not be looking down in doubt and fear and anxiety, but to encourage us to proceed confidently in the direction of our dreams. That was terrific, and thank you for being with us and letting our congregation get to know you as well. It's now time for our offertory, and I am delighted. Again, Daily Word on Monday, April 18th, was about prosperity, and I loved the message that the foundation of prosperous living is a belief in unlimited spiritual substance out of which everything is made. And isn't that the message of today that we're all taking with us home? I love the ending of this daily word to contribute to the flow of prosperity by sharing my wealth in its various forms, including time and talent, and always to give thanks for God, the source of it all. So we are grateful to all of you who have supported Unity of Charlotte through this very interesting time and as we move forward into our very bright future. So join with me in saying our prosperity blessing, and do it with heart. Do it with heart, because you're blessing yourself. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing the divine presence that blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Now for the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.